Good afternoon. We'll call this meeting to order for our CAMPO meeting, Carson Area Metropolitan Planning Organization at 4:30 here in Carson City. Can I have roll call, please, Kathy?
Chairperson Kimbrough.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Bonkowski.
Here.
Member Bagwell. Here. Member Erb.
Here.
Member Hastings. Member Smolinski.
Here.
Member Zentino. Ex officio Member Berry.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you. So, first on the agenda is if there's any change in the agenda, which I would assume
No, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, all right, that was pretty easy. Thank you. Are there any disclosures from anybody on the board for any items on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, I move that forward. Next is we have an opportunity for public comment from members from the public to come forward to speak on items on the agenda, but we prefer if you come during we present that agenda item or any other matters you want to bring before the CAMPO. Seeing none, we'll bring it back for the approval of the minutes from our last meeting.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes of the Carson Area Metropolitan Planning Organization for November 27th, 2017 as presented.
Second.
2 seconds. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move to the public meeting items. Item 6A for possible action, the 2040 Regional Transportation Plan, RTP amendments to incorporate Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act safety performance targets required by the Code of Federal Regulations. Lucia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to kick this off and provide a little bit of background and context and then turn it over to Haley for some more details. So the Safety Performance Measure Final Rule establishes 5 safety performance measures. These are the number of fatalities, the rate of fatalities per 100 million VMT, the number of serious injuries, the rate of serious injuries per 100 million VMT, and a count of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. The implications of these safety targets, big picture, are that the state not making progress or meeting their state-set safety targets has implications for state safety funding. Practically in Nevada, all of that funding pot that would have to be shifted if they didn't meet it is already spent on what the feds would want them to spend it on. So in Nevada, there are no practical implications of the state meeting or making progress. Big picture. MPOs have MPO targets. MPOs can choose to adopt the state set target or adopt our own. Staff have looked at the data in CAMPO, and it's just not defensible for us to adopt the state set target for any of those 5 measures. So we're choosing to set our own targets, which Haley will go into in a little bit more detail. Implications for us not making progress or achieving our targets practically are nothing. Our targets should support meeting or making progress to the state set targets, but there are no funding implications if we don't. We'll have the opportunity to revisit these targets every year. But as you'll see today, we've been doing this, right? So we've been investing in safety improvement projects. We've done the self-taxing with the infrastructure fund for Complete Streets corridor projects. We've endeavored upon the CDBG ADA improvements. We've been doing safety improvements all over town. So for us, you're not going to see big changes in the RTP. You're not going to see big changes in the Transportation Improvement Program update when we bring that to you in the next couple months. This really is just a formalization of our commitment to continuing to monitor these things. One other note is that, in larger urban areas, they may see clusters of crashes or fatalities or serious injuries at a specific intersection or corridor. We don't have that because our numbers are so low. If you look at the map, it almost seems random. So although we're going to consider those crashes absolutely, and if there are clusters in the future, we might potentially change our investment decisions to improve that specific location. That said, we're not going to get a lot of guidance. It's not going to be very clear what we need to do. So we're going to continue with our program to enhance safety system-wide. So with that, Haley will give you a little more detail.
So as mentioned, this amendment was initiated by the requirement from the FAST Act and to incorporate adopted safety performance targets. Due to CAMPO's unique boundary and significantly lower rates than the entire state of Nevada, CAMPO has decided to adopt their own target of an annual reduction rate of 0.5%. If we decided to adopt the state's targets, we would be committing to reducing our fatalities and serious injuries to 0 by year 2019 and 2020, respectively. As an MPO, we've already been tracking these measures on a 4-year basis when we update the RTP. You may notice that the proposed amendment is minimal, and that's because we're just essentially updating our measures with current data and officially adopting them. The new federal regulations permit staff to adopt new targets every year if needed. This allows for staff to track the progress of targets and to revisit on a yearly basis the best scenario for CAMPO. I also want to mention that in the staff report under the supporting material heading, the pages, there was a typo. It should be I and 8, not 9. Those are my comments.
Any questions?
Just looking at the historic data where we have 1 to 5 fatalities over the course of a year, and we're picking a reduction, our goal is a reduction of 0.5%. The change of 1 fatality over the course of a year is actually a 20 to 100% change. So I assume that number, that 0.5% change, is just to show that we're on board with the goal of reduction, even though it doesn't mean anything. The minimum reduction we could have would be 20%. So is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Any other comments or questions? Anybody from the public want to come forward and speak to this item on the agenda? Seeing none, we bring it back to the board. Make a motion.
I move to approve the 2040 Regional Transportation Plan amendments to incorporate Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act safety performance targets as required by the Code of Federal Regulations.
I'll second that.
A second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, call for the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Move on to the next item on the agenda, 6B, to formally approve a revised distribution and schedule of surface transportation program block grant funds between the 3 member agencies of the Carson Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. Lucia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when we get these multiple years of STBG funding, there's different ways MPOs can do it. The way that CAMPO has done it is we presented this table to you in the past, and we allocated the money based on population to our partners, Douglas and Lyon. There's other ways to do it. Some MPOs do calls for project every year, and those partners can submit, and then the MPO can decide and allocate the money. That's just a different way to do it. I think the way that we've done it, coming in here with fresh eyes, is really good. It gives us the ability to plan long term. But we also want to be flexible, right? So if our partners, maybe aren't ready to submit a project, or a project would be better suited sooner or later, I want to be able to be flexible in that way. So we met with Lyon and Douglas County, and we discussed this STBG funding. And for the 2018 funding share, Lyon County requested that we swap the 2018 with the 2020 amount. Carson City, we do more of these LPA agreements with NDOT. We also can mobilize quickly and spend the money on a lot of different projects. So we're able to use that 2018 allotment. So your action that you're being requested to do today is to approve that shift in spending. And what I did communicate with Douglas and Lyon County was, going forward, there's every expectation that we'll get more STBG funding out into the future. Even if they couldn't use the money in this set of money, that's not to mean that it's lost in the future. We're always going to be flexible, and we just want to make the best use of those dollars within the CAMPO area. So happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions or comments? Go ahead.
So do we have an anticipation on where Carson City would use the additional funding?
You're asking for spoiler alerts, Supervisor Bagwell.
I
am. Staff are looking at projects right now. We hope to come back to RTC next month to get approval to use these funds on a project. We're looking at a couple different options right now, so I don't want to make any promises, but one of the things we're looking at is Fairview and what could be done with these dollars for that roadway, which, as you all know, has taken a hit recently.
Any more? I have a question. How often do you meet with Lyon and Douglas?
As often as they'll hear me, but not often enough. I'm trying to meet with them more often.
So like quarterly or monthly or?
So far, I've been here for, 5 months, and we've met once and talked a few times.
Great. I was actually curious myself how often you talk to the partners. So are you talking to staff or are you talking to the city managers, or are you talking to they have engineers like RTC has for you?
So far, it's been primarily Mr. Erb and Mr. Homan.
Good enough, right there. People with experience and knowledge is what you're talking to. Any other questions or comments? Call from the public. Anybody want to come forward and speak to this item on the agenda? Seeing none, we bring it back to the commission or the board or the organization.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the revised distribution and schedule of surface transportation program block grant funds between the 3 member agencies of the Carson Area Metropolitan Planning Organization as recommended by staff.
I have a motion. I have a second. Second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, call for the question. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimous. Next on the agenda, internal communications and administrative matters, future agenda items.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 items we're looking at bringing next month. One is an update on our Jack Transit survey that we conducted, the results that we found. As we mentioned, I think a couple of months ago, one of the key policy decisions we're looking at is whether our riders would be amenable to fare increases. So, we're looking at what the survey results said, as well as some more traditional questions on that survey. So you'll see that next month. The other item up for next month is an update on the ADA transition plan. We've done some informal cost proposals to get a contractor to help us update our 2016 plan. 2016 plan, looking at some additional signalized intersections. So we're going to bring you an update on that contract and that effort next month as well.
Is that it? Can we go to the next agenda item? Okay, thanks. Any board comments? I'll look to the right. No comments? No comment? Sure. No comment?
I just have one. I'd just like to wish the staff and the board a safe and happy holidays to the end of the year, since we're not going to be seeing each other until next year.
Thank you. So, end of board comments. Last chance for public for any reason to come forward to speak tonight. Seeing nobody come forward. Next meeting is scheduled for January 10th here at 4:30. And I don't have an adjournment on that, do I? Is it on the next page? Oh, there it is. Motion for adjournment?
So moved.
So moved. So, a quarter till? Okay, we'll be back in RTC a quarter till.
order this meeting of the Carson City Regional Transportation Commission. It is Wednesday, December 13th, 2017. We are in the Sierra Room at the Carson City Community Center. Kathy, can I have a roll call, please?
Chairperson Bonkowski. Vice Chairperson Smolinski. Here. Commissioner Bagwell. Here. Commissioner Kimbrough. Here. Commissioner Zentino. Quorum is present.
Thank you. Agenda item 2, do we have any changes to the agenda tonight?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any disclosures from any of the board members on any of the items tonight? I see none. Now we're on agenda item 4 for public comment, initial public comment. Any members of the public that would like to come up and address the RTC can do so at this time or at the time an agenda item is brought forward. And I see nobody approaching, so we will move on to item 5, approval of the minutes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes of the Regional Transportation Commission of November 27, 2017.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Passes unanimously. We are now on agenda item 6A for possible action to approve the submission of a community development block grant application by the Public Works Department for ADA improvements along College Parkway between North Carson Street and Northgate Lane. And Dirk, you have this item.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so staff is requesting approval to submit an application. This is for 2018 round of community development block grants. To be eligible for this grant, you need to be doing a project for the most part in a low to moderate income area. We've identified College Parkway between Carson and Northgate, and the proposal is to do a project that has an estimate price tag of about $260,000. There is no local match required or proposed. The improvements are going to include fixes to non-compliant curb ramps, sidewalks, and the push-button signal that's located at the Carson and College Parkway intersection. And that concludes my comments. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions from the commissioners? Mark?
Just one comment. I live over there, and one day there was this poor lady in one of those motor chairs that couldn't get over the curb there that you guys are working on, and she kept trying, and all the cars finally stopped. And somebody got out and helped her push up there. So I know there's a definite need for that on that intersection because she could not get up the curb.
Thank you.
How much did we get out of CDBG last year for?
We got $239 total. It came in kind of two parts, but this is very similar to that project. The first part was about 130, and then we just recently got a second part. So that project is between John and Bath on North Carson Street.
But what was the total? I'm just trying to get an idea. This
Right.
is for 260. Did we?
The first half was roughly 113, and then the second half approved by the Board of Supervisors in November was 79. So it came out to 190.
92.
So
And
we're
these are-
stepping this up.
These are back of the envelope numbers, rough.
Correct. And that last time, I think we applied for around 234. We didn't get all that, but we
Right.
did apply for a similar amount last time.
So what if we, sorry, may I continue?
Yeah.
What if we don't get it all?
If we don't get it, then this project is scalable.
It's scalable?
You do less sidewalks, you
Okay.
do less curb ramps, you do as much as you
You
can.
answered
Yep.
it. It's scalable.
And
Thank you.
historically, if I remember correctly, we've received up to like 270,000 in certain years. So it just depends on the application process, the other applications that come in. Do we have any further questions? Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak to this item? See nobody approaching, so I'll bring this back to the commission and entertain a motion.
Make a motion? I move to approve the submission of a community development block grant application by the Public Works Department for ADA improvements to College Parkway between North Carson Street and Northgate Lane.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Passes unanimously. We are on agenda item 6B for possible action to accept a Bureau of Land Management right-of-way offer presented to Carson City for the roadway and associated improvements needed for the construction and maintenance of Sierra Vista Lane as part of the Federal Lands Access Program grant project across Assessor's Parcel Number 010-261-05. And Dirk, you also have this item.
Thank you. Just to keep it short and sweet, this is the last piece to the Sierra Vista Lane project. This is about 1,400 feet of roadway that we're requesting right-of-way to. This is going to allow us to maintain, operate, and improve if necessary. There is language about a payment in the document, but the city is exempt, so I just wanted to put that on the record. There is no just compensation associated with this grant. We will need to renew it in 2046. It's just kind of some of BLM's language that they put into their approval, so they remind themselves to reevaluate it in the future. And just on a kind of a side comment, the bid for that construction project is open and it closes tomorrow, which is exciting. So that concludes my comments. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Dirk, what exactly would BLM want to reevaluate if the road is constructed? We certainly don't want to have to tear that road out in 20 years.
We asked the same question, and I wouldn't expect the road to be torn out, but for some reason, if they didn't want to renew it, then the maintenance responsibility would fall upon BLM. So it really didn't make any sense, and we asked them these questions, and the answer that we got was that this is typical language because they don't want to get in the habit of issuing right-of-way on federal lands and then never looking at it again. So it's just part of their administrative process to force them to reevaluate it.
Right, but the possibility does exist that we could lose the road because the permit or the easement actually terminates if they don't renew it.
That's correct. So we might lose the right to construct, but I don't think the access right would go away just based on historical conditions.
Okay. Do you have any additional questions from the commissioners?
I was kind of on the same thing in reading of the temporary use permit. You know, it says this instrument shall terminate on December 31st, 2046, and this instrument may not be renewed. And, you know, so I was going to ask the same question.
Again, we asked that question, and, you know, to change that language would have required additional time. And based on their comments to us, we didn't find a need to go through all that. And like I said, if they don't renew it, the maintenance then falls onto BLM.
So just for the record, we want to make sure that we have all your contact information on record so that in 2046, we know who to call.
There it is.
All right, is there any public comment on this item? Okay, I see none, so I'll bring this back to the commission and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the Bureau of Land Management right-of-way offer presented to Carson City for the roadway and associated improvements needed for the construction and maintenance of Sierra Vista Lane as part of the Federal Lands Access Program grant project across APN 010-261-05.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Also passes unanimously. We are now on item 6C for possible action to approve amendment number 1 to contract number 1516-129 with MV Transportation, Inc. to add $24,985.84 for the remainder of year 2, which is January 1st, 2018 to September 30th, 2018. And $33,314.45 for year 3, to the contract for the operation of Jack Fixed Route and Jack Assist Paratransit Service. And Graham, this is your item.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I begin, I'd like to introduce 2 special guests we have with us tonight, both of whom are MV Transportation employees. We have Mark Elias, the Senior Vice President of the Northwest Division, and Farrell Bonner, the general manager for the local division here in Carson City. He was actually recently appointed. Don't think he's been formally introduced, but he's been around for about 7 years. And worked his way up through the ranks, started as a dispatcher, moved up to operations manager, and now general manager. So they'll be here to answer any questions you may have on the item tonight. So what prompted this proposal is a rash of driver shortages that had threatened a loss of service to the Jack Transit system. And several applicants and potential applicants cited wage rate as the primary reason for declining job offers or for just not applying in the first place. While this issue is not unique to Carson City, it's something that needs to be addressed. So staff is proposing an amendment to the contract with MV Transportation, which operates the Jack Transit system on behalf of the RTC. The proposed amendment would increase the driver wage, the base wage rate, from $10 to $12 per hour. Staff has spoken with transit systems operating out of Reno, Tahoe, and Douglas County, and as it stands, Jack drivers earn the lowest base wage rate in the region. The amendment would increase the driver wage range by $2. The whole range would shift, with $1 of the increase coming from MV Transportation at no expense to the RTC, and the other $1 coming from the RTC. The RTC is currently in the middle of a 3-year base term contract with MV Transportation. Approval of the increase is scheduled to go into effect January 1st, 2018. Which equates to 3/4 of the current contract year. The entire final contract year, year 3, would also be proportionately increased. As I mentioned, MV will provide a $1 increase to the base wage either way. I'd also like to note that driver wages were addressed in 2016 when we were bidding this contract, and resulted in an increase from the previous base wage. While MV is not including any profit in the increase to the contract, the RT's cost per revenue hour will go up by about $1.45 due to payroll expenses such as personnel tax and workers' comp. And I'll just close by saying that MV's willingness to meet us halfway serves to build on past achievements and to support a successful ongoing relationship. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Graham, you said that the primary complaint from drivers was wages. What were some of the other complaints? Or maybe one of the two of you may need to answer that.
Wage was the number one.
Can we have you come up to the podium and state your name for the record, please?
Farrell Bonner. Wage was the biggest thing. Trying to hire drivers with experience, we couldn't get them. They would go to Reno, they would go to Tahoe because of the wage alone. So we were getting drivers with no experience with a CDL license and having to train them and get them out in the field. That's where experience comes. You get safety with experience. They love our schedule. They love the town of Carson. I really didn't hear any other complaint other than the wage. That was the number one factor for closing a deal and hiring somebody.
Graham, you also mentioned that there was a wage survey done and that it showed that we had the lowest wages in the area. Can you say what some of the wages were, or by how far we were below some of the other wages?
For example, Washoe County, they actually just recently increased their base wage range for the same reason. So they moved from $12 to $14 per hour. Douglas County, their base rate is $13.34. TTD is $10.50 to start, but they move up to $11.50 once they've completed their training and they're actually in service. And then Placer County just recently increased as well from $16 to $19 per hour.
So we'll still be on the low end.
That's correct.
Okay. So are you fairly comfortable that this wage increase will make the difference and we won't still have the same problem because we're still going to be the second to lowest wages?
I think it will make a difference because most of the drivers who initially expressed an interest had some sort of experience, and we're able to start them out higher in the range, the wage scale, based on experience. So as I mentioned, the whole range will be shifted up by $2. So I think it will have an impact.
And then certainly the ones in California pay other taxes that they don't pay in Nevada, like they pay an income tax and disability tax, and so it's really not an apple to apples comparison, if you were to answer for that too.
When I sat up at TTD, Placer County especially, was a huge panic because they could not get drivers, so they went to 19. I mean, seriously, and TTD, especially in the winter, were a difficult time getting anybody, plus there's no housing for them. So it's a very big problem regionally, and they say that there's just nobody, as the generations are growing up, that are excited about driving buses, so there's nobody filling the slots, and so they're out begging for people with CDLs to work. So I really think it's great that MB was willing to come up with part of the money. That's huge to me. That's really a big deal. To get quality, safe drivers out there on the road. So Carson City just come up with $1 is exceptional. So if that fills a hole, that's wonderful, and we can compete maybe out of the snow. Down here in the flats, as flatlanders, but that make Placer County maybe less happy too. But I mean, it's huge to Placer County. They were out, I guess their supervisors were driving the buses half the year up there and stuff. So, so good support. Thank you.
That's a great point, and I should also mention to Brad's last question, I failed to mention that that Washoe and the Tahoe systems were having staffing issues. They were having trouble hiring, but Douglas County was not. So, with their base wage of $13.34, we'll be pretty close to that. So,
Any additional questions from the commissioners?
You guys covered all of mine.
Okay. Is there any public comment? Any public comment on this item? I see nobody approaching, so I'll bring this back to the commission for a motion.
I'll make the motion. I move to approve amendment number 1 to contract number 1516-129 with MB Transportation, Inc. to add $24,985.84 for the remainder of year 2, January 1st, 2018 to September 30th, 2018, and $33,314.45 for year 3, October 1, 2018 to September 30th, 2019, to the contract for the operation of Jack Fixed Route and Jack Assist Paratransit Service.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. We are on agenda item 6D for possible action to approve the purchase of 24 battery backup systems and 239 backplate kits from Sierra Transportation and Technologies for a not to exceed amount of $113,455 to be funded from the street signal repair and maintenance account. And who's got this item? Lucia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try to keep this brief and then let you ask questions if I'm not clear. I did provide a supplemental handout tonight, and that'll be posted to our website in the morning, but there's additional handouts in the back if anyone from the public would like to grab a copy of that. I'm going to present using this handout. I think it's a clearer order than the description that was contained in the staff report. Bottom line is, the city manager has made it a goal and a strategic, thing that we're doing to incorporate these battery backups and make us more prepared in the case of emergency and power outage for our traffic signals. So the city would like to purchase 12 battery backups systems, and this comes to a total line item cost for $43,020. In addition to those 12, we entered into an interlocal agreement with NDOT, and that was at a not to exceed amount of $159,000. Back in June of 2017, city staff provided an estimate to NDOT for the purchase of 12 battery backup systems and 239 retroreflective backplate kits. and received an estimate, and they pre-reimburse. So we've already received a payment for $112,483. That $112,483 is for the hardware, so 12 battery backup systems and 239 backplate kits, but it's also for miscellaneous installation. So the wiring, the rivets, the relays, assembly of the panels, those types of things, as well as traffic control for installation. So that's why some of the numbers don't line up. Tonight you're being asked to approve a purchase of $113,415, and that's for the numbers in bold in the handout. So that's the hardware, if you will, which includes 24 total battery backup systems and 239 backplate kits. That concludes my explanation of this. All of this is budgeted. It's all coming out of this one account, and again, the reimbursement from NDOT has already been received, so it's all there.
So Lucia, the 239 backplates, is that for 12 or for 24?
The 239 backplates, it's a separate component. The backplates are like a picture frame, if you will. It's reflective on the signal, the bulbs that hang down, and that's different from the battery backups.
Let me rephrase the question. How many intersections? Is it 12 intersections or is it 24 intersections?
24.
Okay. Does the question make sense now?
Yes.
It's for all
24.
of the intersections. Okay.
Yes.
And then
I believe.
Is there additional expense for installation or wiring or any other expenses that will be coming forward on this project?
You know, the miscellaneous installation, the NDOT staff that we've been working with have been really, it's been a really good partnership. The intersections that we were talking about doing under the NDOT interlocal are the three interchanges, if you will, with 580, as well as east on 50 East, and Fairview, I believe. And the additional 12 are for South Carson south of Fairview on the local road, what's now a local road, or will be. And so they've been really good partners on this. And as I understand, the miscellaneous installation materials would cover the full suite of what we're ordering in this package.
Do you have additional questions?
I got.
Go ahead, Jim.
I have one that was kind of on the same line with the back plates. So these 24 battery backups will cover 24 intersections, correct? So a battery backup is per intersection? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then the 239 backplates will cover all those signals that are hanging in those 24 intersections.
That's correct.
Okay. Good.
Right, the number of backplates per intersection varies depending on whether they have the flashing yellow turns or.
Okay.
My only comment is, why can't you always get these pre-reimbursed?
I'll work on that.
Additional questions from the commissioners? Lori? You have any questions? Is there any public comment on this item? I see nobody walking forward, so I'll bring this back and entertain a motion.
Motion. I move to approve the purchase of 24 battery backup systems and 239 backplate kits from Sierra Transportation and Technologies for a not-to-exceed amount of $113,455 to be funded from the Street Signal Repair and Maintenance account.
So on discussion,
Oh. Did you find a number?
It's the three bolded ones.
right, okay,
And that totals what?
Because it's to
okay,
that vendor.
got it, never mind.
Yeah. I
All right,
think, okay.
just trying to make the numbers work.
The other stuff's not the
Okay,
same
just
vendor. Right.
So on the additional handout, the three items listed in bold, according to the 43,020 plus 43,020 plus 27,415, you show a figure of 113,415. But in the motion,
55.
it's $113,455. So which one should it be?
My apologies, it should be the amount in the motion. That was a typo in the handout, I apologize.
And Lucia, why is it that the two miscellaneous items on here for 42,000 and some are not included in the authorization to purchase?
The quote that we received from Sierra Construction, thank you. It just included the purchase of the hardware. These additional pieces were pieces that staff estimated when we sent in that estimate in June, that they pre-reimbursed for, but we haven't purchased them yet, or they're not included in this purchase from Sierra.
Right. It's not this purchase order from this particular vendor.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. All right. I think we're discussed out. Okay. All right. Okay. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Okay. Passes 4-0. We are now on to item 7 on the agenda, internal communications and administrative matters, non-action items. We have the transportation manager's report, 7A.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We just met 2 weeks ago. It seems like a while, but I didn't want you to forget me, so we met again today. And so not a lot of updates. I did want to let you know Carson City did apply for 3 separate recreational trails program grants. 2 came from Public Works. One of those 2 was for the linear ditch trail. There was another one for continuation of a path on South Carson Street. And then Open Space, Parks and Open Space applied for one for Long Ranch Park. The city, when we pre-met and we strategized, we emphasized maintenance because that was on the list of eligible activities for this Rec Trails Program grant. The selection committee went in a different direction this year, and we did not win any of those 3 grant applications. So I wanted to let you know that. We are actively searching for other funding opportunities and will continue to apply, but I did want to give you that update.
That's unfortunate. Maybe we should have taken him for a walking tour on the trails over at Longview Ranch Estates, because they definitely need to be replaced. Okay, is that it for your manager's report?
That's it. Thank you.
All right, moving on to 7B, street operations activity report.
Street operations and activity report. Thank you, Chair. This is data activities as of September. This hasn't updated significantly since your update in November. I don't even have any talking points, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions on the report? I see none. On the 7C, project status report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll also keep this brief. This is going to look very, very similar to the one you saw 2 weeks ago. And due to that quick turnaround, the 2 weeks, there are some late additions to the freeway multi-use path project, which is first in that packet. We've expended $850,000 on that project, not $61,000. And that's because the construction window for that project was so short. As of today, construction is over 90% complete. And we expect to finish that up. The roadway, if you've driven out on Airport, has been completely redone. The striping's all finished and that roadway's open. We're paving. The paving crew is out on the path right now. So we should be finished in the next week or 2. So that's the update on that from what was in the packet. Everything else remains essentially the same. Sierra Vista, we received an update today. Silver Sage Drive, that's again, we're waiting for the spring on that. Waiting for the spring on all of our ceiling projects. Those are going to be the same. The CDBG North Carson Street improvements. What you don't see on here, because we haven't actually received it yet, but Board of Supervisors took action to get that $79,000 roughly in November. So you'll see that start getting worked into there in the next update. The battery backup improvements, that came to you tonight. South Carson bike and ped improvements. We're starting design for that, along with some other South Carson Street improvements. Carson City multi-use path to Colorado. We're still waiting on the notice to proceed with NDOT. The grocery outlet beacon, that finished, and I promised you it would come out, but due to the quick turnaround, it's still there, but it's completed. happy to take any questions you might have.
Any questions? Good job. On the 7D, future agenda items.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 3 items on the list for January for RTC. The first is approval to allocate that STBG funding that CAMPO heard earlier this evening, once staff select and recommend a project. The second is approval to pursue Transportation Alternatives Program, TAP, grant funding. What we'll do is we'll bring, if we have multiple projects within the CAMPO area, RTC will approve Carson's pursuit of grants, and then we'll also take it then to February CAMPO, where CAMPO can rank those projects, and Carson City can be awarded an additional 10 points in NDOT's judging scheme. So that'll be kind of a 2-part if we have multiple applications, but the RTC part will come to you next month. And then the third and final thing for next month is that, as Supervisor Bagwell knows, we applied for a Walkability Action Institute funding support to send us to this institute in April. So Courtney Bloomer will come and present our activities there and our application at the next meeting.
Great, thank you. Any future agenda items from any of the commissioners?
No, just a quick comment. As I was reviewing the minutes from the last meeting, I know that Commissioner Bagwell had mentioned something about the issue of the timing of the lights. Do we have any update on that as to when we might get understanding?
No update. I'm looking at possibly bringing that to you in February. You know, I want to make sure we're bringing you the best information possible, and we're really stretched thin on the staff resources side of that, and so I want to make sure that we have the time to put together a good presentation.
Thank you.
Okay. Agenda item 8, any board comments? All right, Jim?
I just bet you don't want these meetings every 2 weeks is my only comment I would make.
And I would just echo John Erb from the last meeting. Just want to wish everybody a good Christmas and holiday season, since we won't see each other until next year. Or some of us might, but.
Safe.
Yep. Final chance for public comment. I see nobody. Okay, our next meeting is tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, January 10th, right here in this room.
2018.
2018, yes. Wow. And thank you all for attending. We are adjourned.